Yay. Look
We
at
are
that.
in solid shape.
We're almost professional.
Yes.
We're getting there. Another, well, this is what? This is the third season of the podcast. No, fourth season of the podcast. This might be the fourth season of the podcast. And I feel like I'm really starting to know maybe a little bit about what I'm doing, which is kind of scary. What do you
I
think?
well, I'm just one, I think you know what you're doing, but I am just a little concerned that maybe YouTube pulls this podcast down for something we display, like I did with our coaches conversation that it took you 2 weeks to go through the editing and blur the names and pit zone.
Okay,
So
so to be clear, the last podcast was pulled from YouTube um, because not it said it was for bullying and something else like aggressive like behavior or something, and all I can figure out is that there were when I was showing Pit Zone, it was showing people's email addresses. So I went in and I blurred out the email addresses, which not hard, but it's tedious. And then put that back up, and I haven't heard a peep. So exact same video, exactly the same, just blurred out email addresses. So now I guess I'll have to like anytime I show anything with Pit Zone, I'm gonna have to blur it out before I put it up.
well,
So
that's good. So as far as we know, it was not my proclivity to bring out the knife hands anytime
no, no, there's
we're on
no
a
hot knife
podcast. Or
hands.
okay,
Knife
good.
hands are like totally acceptable. So
Yes.
yes, and I
Yeah.
would because I was like I listen to podcasts that they're actively like I listen to a podcast about the English football team that I follow, Leeds United. They got relegated to the Championship League, and like they actively talk crap about players. And I was
Yeah.
like, man, I'm like being totally innocent, and I'm getting pulled, and they're like, not a problem. So
Well, I thought you were about to reference our Ted Lasso video from the League Summit, which had a little bit of potty mouth in it.
as they call it on the show, fruity language. Apologies for the fruity
Yes,
language.
yeah, yeah. When you're a youth sports organization, you're like, oh, okay. There's all adults in the room, I think.
Yep, yep. So excellent. Well, how are you doing, Brian?
I don't know. Maybe it's the first Nika hangover of the season after League Summit. It was pretty awesome. I mean, it was a good time. It was great seeing everyone. It's kind of that vibe. I think one of the first pictures I put on Instagram was us sitting around the camp outside your van. You and Golden in the van, and just some people hanging around, getting caught up. So yeah, I'm doing great to answer your question. Like it was a good weekend hanging out with all you all again.
Yeah, definitely like bringing the band back together. Some new faces at League Summit, some returning faces at League Summit. Uh, that was, always a great way to start so that you kind of have some enthusiasm, I think is really important. And it just felt like a great time. It was fun getting to ride. So I had a coach that is newish to our league. Just trained him at OTBS 101 this past coach training season in August. And he was kind of looking at all of us to lead a ride at Whitewater Center. And we were like, none of us have ever ridden here before. Do you know the trails? And he said, yes. And we were like, well, then you're our leader. And seeing him thrust into that like leadership role kind of unexpectedly was really fun. And I enjoyed that. And then I think the 201 course, that was the biggest 201 I've ever taught. I had 17 students. And so that was a lot. And apologies for some of my positive correction. People were flying past me so fast. Sometimes I was just like, good job. Let me see it again. Like, just kind of like my little placeholder of like, I totally didn't catch anything. So, yeah.
Yeah, and for folks that weren't there, the format, Saturday, Sunday mornings of classes, seminars. Thanks, Shawn, for putting together some great content. We call this a league summit because it is things specific to North Carolina, not what you get in the online leader summit from NICA. And then an afternoon, either spending some time with you in a clinic or out on some group rides at the Whitewater Center. Let's give them a shout out. Very good hosts, phenomenal facility, some really cool trails. And I think all of our ride groups had kind of that Charlotte insider with them, familiar with the trails and help lead. I know my group had Kristen from Sur de Charlotte. Awesome. She helped lead our group around the trails. And yeah, it was a really good time to get reconnected with everyone.
So as far as the league summit content went, I mean, I appreciate your kudos for the stuff that I presented, but honestly, like I was blown away by a lot of stuff that was presented, and I really am really impressed with what the TTC committee and the adventure committee under Shell's kind of like vision for those programs really came up with and presented. Like that was to me like amazing, and I heard lots and lots of coaches talking about it, and even been involved in some conversations afterwards that have been specifically about like, hey, our team is going to incorporate adventure this year. Like we're going to do some destination rides. So I think that really had an impact. But what were your thoughts on that?
I think, like I shared with everyone there, and I'll share with everyone here on the podcast who's listening, I hope we've established a culture as league staff of listening to feedback and how we just make our league better in whatever facet of our programming that is. Typically, good ideas come from the ground up, and that's this idea of committees and bringing folks in that have some passion about a particular aspect of riding. And that's, Shawn, that's what you're describing. That's what you saw. So when Leonard, our new teen trail corps coordinator, gets up and speaks about it, the passion just kind of comes through. You can see it that he cares. And oh, by the way, leadership in action. Stanley Shredder's out of the gate already in the season with like 100+ hours of teen trail corps work. Like, Stanley Shredder's like they're invested in the trail systems. And I think what's beneficial to the way we've set up the summits is that two-way dialogue. So when we come out with a new idea, like, hey teams, we'd like you to have a teen trail corps coach this year. Let's talk about what that means. Here's our idea, but how do you see that implemented? Same thing with adventure. Teams, could you please have an adventure coach this season? We want to kickstart that program. What does that look like? And that was what I appreciated most, honestly, is just the feedback from the folks who were attending. What are you seeing and how can we support you better?
That, and I really feel like there's flesh on those bones now. Like I remember the very first leadership summit that I went to when the league formed, and this talk of like we're more than racing, and there's adventure, and then the second year there was teen trail corps, but there wasn't really a lot there. And I think that's been a real labor of love for the people involved to like really bring that programmatic idea to this like kind of not fully formed, but this really well formed, I think, initial pilot for what's going on this year. And judging from what has been done with grit, like I'm super excited at how adventure and TTC can bring new facets to our student athletes that are already involved, but also be potential drivers for new student athletes and coaches to join the league that I think have maybe heard or pigeonholed us as being a race league only, or just, if you're serious in racing. And so that we're something just much greater and broader and really representative of mountain biking as a whole, rather than just a single aspect of it.
Yeah, and that idea of committees, again, I think is powerful. It's what we saw in Grit and why we want to do it with our other programs. But let me use this as a way to make an announcement. We're also forming a racing committee in the league this season. Stephen Cole has agreed to lead that for us. So we continue to invest the good ideas and the development of our racing program. Competition is still important in this league. We want to make sure that message is loud and clear. And again, good ideas typically come from the bottom. So people with that type of experience help us feed that into our racing program. And we'll see some of that for the upcoming season. So yeah, I really like that committee idea.
Well, I'm going to take your announcement and kind of one up you and say that
Oh,
I too am interested in forming a coaching committee because I had lots of great conversations with coaches and really had my 201 group just point blank say like why can't we have more of a discussion about um, best practices, how to structure a practice, those sorts of things, and that really got me thinking that that's realistically we need to have a committee so that we can kind of have multiple like not just voices but ideas that are kind of going in and making things better. So I will be I'll be interested to see if anyone would like to be a part of that. They can just reach out to me and shoot me an email, and I will take your name down and start putting all that together. So if you're interested in being a part of the coaching committee, hit me up.
real quickly, Shawn, why don't we just give everyone a quick rundown of some of the content, and I'll start just by mentioning if you go to the League Summit section on the website under events, there's a link to the folder of all the presentations, so you can go take a look. So Saturday morning, I gave a review of the league, kind of 2023, how we did, what was going on, and then followed by Leonard with a overview of Team Trail Corps. Really successful last season. Want to continue that success. We're looking at 3,000 hours over our 1,900 hours from last season. And again, this idea of a Team Trail Corps coach to help us do that. Gave some good instruction how to report your Team Trail Corps hours. And I'm sure Leonard and the committee would be happy if anyone reached out and said, hey, how do I report hours? What's this idea of a Team Trail Corps coach? Go ahead and reach out, and we'll help answer those questions. But then we went to Friday Fails Saturday morning. Yeah.
So this is something that I've talked about, and Michael Eastwood and I would talk about it at OTBS 101 courses, and just a way of practicing error detection and correction and watching people ride and so I went through and I pulled as many sort of videos that I felt were representative of things that we would see in NICA, eliminating jumps and all those kinds of crazy things, and really to see if people could spot kind of what was going on. And one of the cool things when with doing it on YouTube is you can slow it down. So if you're just not seeing it, you can slow it down. You can maybe build your skills a little bit with seeing the error in slow motion and then kind of going back to regular motion to see if you can kind of like develop that vision for it. So yeah, that was something that you encouraged me to put together, and so I sat down and put it all together, and I think everybody had a good time. We did it as a group activity, so in groups they were talking about what error they thought had happened and what they would say to help correct it and things like that. And I think it was a really good way to kind of have a larger conversation about that idea of error detection and correction.
Yeah, I liked the approach one with the videos and like you said, the group work, and it just reinforced or helped get after what we saw in the end of season survey. Student athletes asking for some more skills instruction, coaches asking for some more help on how you do skills instruction and just like you walked them through. So I think that was great. And then followed by as I kind of build it, if your Friday fail goes really bad, you might have to implement your emergency action plan. So we had Brian Wood, our chief course marshal, walk everyone through emergency action plans, which I think is really beneficial. One, there's a new form out there, so that's linked on our website. Make sure you've got the latest EAP from NICA. And in our about to kick off preseason for all the head coaches, it's time to dust those off from your venue, your practice venue from last season. Take a look, things change, reevaluate as you get in the season. I think that was a good start to get everyone's head thinking about EAPs. And I am working as diligently as I can to update our EAP map on the website. I've been focused on teams, getting info as team proposals come in, get it updated. But my next kind of task is get that EAP link set up. So if you're going to a new location, look on the site, there might be an EAP there. You can pull that as a starting point for you to develop your own EAP for your practice. So you don't have to start from scratch.
And to kind of follow on that, Leonard Van Hoos from the TTC committee was talking about how they were using TeamSnap to put in certain files like EAPs and things like that that can be accessible from anyone with TeamSnap. And so I sat down today to kind of like work in my team's team snap. And after putting together a new EAP, I downloaded it, I uploaded it as a file into my team's team snap instance. And one of the things I found was by making all of my coaches managers, then setting the file or the folder that I put it into private, only the managers can see it. So it was something to where I was able to put a couple things in that really I just wanted coaches to have access to without student athletes seeing it. So there was like some weather protocol stuff that was shared in the level 3 license training that I went through, and I was just like, let me just put all this stuff in Team Snap, and then that way, at the beginning of the season, I can just have coaches pull up Team Snap, they can download it to their phones, and that way they've got it. So even if they don't have internet access, they'll still have that file on their phone and be able to go from there with what we're doing and how it goes.
And we saw a lot of that at the summit, and I think exactly why it's important to bring people together in person. Just all the good ideas that start getting shared. I call it the work inside the margins. At the break or on the ride. Hey, you're doing it that way. Hey, I'm using TeamSnap for that. And I think a lot of that happened this weekend. And then before we went on a group ride Saturday, had a pretty funny presentation from Mark Jocelyn, the vice president of Trek. He's the vice president of human resources at Trek. Spent 37 minutes of his time recording kind of his coaching lessons from Ted Lasso. I'm sure a lot of our listeners, viewers are familiar with Ted Lasso. Again, trigger warning for the potty mouth in Ted Lasso sometimes, but pretty funny. And then followed by a presentation from Chad Wolf, who's our regional Trek rep. I think most folks that were with us last season saw that great support from Trek. We will receive no less, probably even more support from Trek this coming season. A great league sponsor national sponsor for NICA, but really they're bringing some good things for this league. So it was great to hear from them. And then out on group rides for the afternoon.
And then we hung out a little bit by the roaring artificial river.
Yes. Yeah. Very, very scenic for a bunch of mountain bikers with the river behind
Yes.
us. Yeah.
I did that OTBS 101 refresh, and Bob Zarzecki, like, I was like, okay, well, we're kind of wrapped up. We can go ride now. And Bob Zarzecki was like, do you mind if I go paddle? And I was like, I guess, like, you're fine, like, if that's what you want. So he's like playing in the river in his boat. He was like, yeah, I brought my boat so I could be in the river. And I was like, I don't understand why you would want to do that over mountain biking, but I'm
Yeah.
not gonna yuck someone else's yum, as Melissa Davies would say.
Well, we're getting ahead of our agenda a little bit, but season 8, choose your own adventure. The Whitewater Center, there's a lot of adventures to choose from. And so, yeah, part of the weekend was our adventure committee touring around the center, setting up our 18 November preseason adventure event at the Whitewater Center. And we will be back in season 8 for a regular season event at the Whitewater Center. Again, they're treating us very, very well there. And while we're mentioning sponsors, just give a shout out, and it is for our video viewers displayed behind me on my Zoom screensaver, the Cognitive MTB League gloves. So we're recording this Thursday night on 12 October, 13 October, last day to get your pre-order in for the League gloves from Cognitive MTB. Email reminder will go out in the morning, but yeah, great support from them. Speaking of Teen Trail Corps, they're our Teen Trail Corps sponsor, Cognitive MTB. So thanks for the support from all those great sponsors.
And not to put a damper on the enthusiasm for the gloves, but for those out there wondering, they do not say jazz hands across the palms. So but other than that, they're awesome gloves. So I would highly recommend getting them. But that would have just been man.
Or finger
Missed
on brake.
opportunity.
Wait a minute,
Missed opportunity, Brian.
Yeah, I know. Hey, a second year league director, like maybe next year you will get more out of
Version
me.
2. Version 2 is going to say jazz hands across the palms when you put them together.
I don't remember seeing mountain bike apparel design in the job description, but here I am. It's part of what I do. So, and then day 2, we introduced the season theme for season 8. It is choose your own adventure. Much like last season we did with Teen Trail Corps, get that program up and running. in season 8, we're going to get our adventure program up and running. So we led with a good presentation from our adventure committee on things to expect. As a matter of fact, today, social media, if you haven't seen already, Shell started teasing out our adventure passport. So every student athlete in this league will get a small booklet filled with mountain bike activities, things you can do on 2 wheels in the woods. Collect those throughout the season. Coaches, you can incorporate those into your practice plans. Come to the adventure tent at our season events, get them stamped. Those that do all the activities in that booklet get a prize at the end of the season. And we're already hearing a little bit of excitement about the adventure passport for the season. And good job to the adventure committee. Really creative idea to do.
It is a very cool little thing, and I think something that kids are going to hang on to after this season. Like it reminds me so of my son when he was really young. We would do these little activities that were available on this website, and they would send like a little patch, like a little badge, like almost a merit badge, but they were just sort of like for different things. And he's walking around with this pack the other day, and it's got all of these badges on it from when he was like 6 years old. And he's like, "Yeah, look at this thing I found. I'm using it again." So I think stuff like that, like these kids create not just memories, but like senses of accomplishment when they take care of doing things like that. And I think that's going to be really cool.
Yeah, and that we'll continue that this season too. Those race plate badges, much like we started last season. There's even more this season. I'm pretty excited. I think I'm with Leonard on this one. The No Trace Ninja for helping clean up your trails is a pretty cool badge. But yeah, kids will be able to display a lot of their accomplishments on the mountain bike this season. And then Shawn, we brought you up on the stage again for another class. Like how did that go?
It went well. So that was a reprise of last league summits reactive agility training, and it's just a way of like getting people to do something that they are. You do it every day, like raise your right hand, raise your left hand, stand up, sit down, and then really taxing your brain with like different stimuli to make those tasks very difficult to where you have to think about them in order to do them, and a way of kind of like bringing some more brain training to your practices in a way that maybe your really high flyer student athletes kind of get to go back to that beginner mind and really uh, kind of like build up some different neural pathways and some faster kind of skill sets. So I'm excited about using that. I've used it a couple of times in my practices, and I want to do more with it because I think it's really helpful and it does some really interesting things.
Yeah, the colored arrows you shared in terms of which way to turn on your bike as the student athletes coming. I think that's really a cool idea. And again, thanks for sharing that and leading through some of the skills clinics to help our coaches, keep some creative things in their practices and challenge the kids. And then we closed on. Oh, go ahead, Shawn.
Well, I just finished up my level 3 coach course, and in that there is a whole segment that's essentially talking about that. It's this research from the '60s by Fitz and Posner that's about this way of developing this cognitive training in physical activity and how it works with skills becoming automatic. And that's exactly what I was kind of building on with the reactive agility stuff. So I think it was cool to see that NICA is sort of like incorporating that concept in what we do as well. So I think it's something definitely to look at and consider.
Yeah. And then we closed on, I think there are two related sessions. We had Jeff and Diane LeBlanc from Downey's Dirt Dogs talk about team culture, just their ways of building a pretty inclusive, welcoming environment. I can raise my right hand and give a testimony about that. I'm a member of the Dirt Dogs. When we came here in 2020, just they put their arms around my family, and it was all types of awesome. But ideas like race buddies, how can your younger kids help an older kid in the staging area? Nervous, jitters. Oh, I forgot my water bottle. Hey, race buddy, can you go help me out? Just those ideas, sharing those with our coaches. Again, just to build team culture. I do believe that so much of the magic in this league happens down at the team level. We here at the league are just trying to establish a platform for all that team goodness to happen. So great to hear from them. And then closed it, this league summit, with a former student athlete panel. Had Spencer Cathy, Owen Cole, and Madison Maloney, athletes that have left the league for a couple years, to come back and reflect on their experiences with us. Thought that was important to do. We're building lifelong mountain bikers. I thought maybe we should hear them. Like, how's it going? You've left the nest for a year or two. How's that going? And then NICA next month will launch its alumni network. So staying connected as a NICA alumni. So thought it'd be great to hear from them. And I don't know what your impressions were, Shawn, but I think all those athletes found a pretty welcoming, inclusive, yet challenging environment, challenging enough to give them the confidence to go start programs at their schools they're at now. Like, oh wow, hey, they're spreading the mountain biking and cycling thing where they are. So I thought it was a good way to end the session.
Yeah, it's always fun to see that. And Madison is special to me just because she was with our team, and just the successes that she's having. It's just a great thing to see that she's doing so well with mountain biking and mountain bike racing.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, for those that couldn't join us, sorry you missed, but those presentations will be available on the website if you want to take a look what we got. Certainly reach out if you think you missed anything. Happy to have a conversation with you and the like. But yeah, I think a pretty good session for us, Shawn.
Yes, and I think I'm ready to start planning for next year and seeing what we can do to make it even better.
All right, that's good.
Awesome. Well, this is your gig. You are bringing in the sponsors, and you got some new announcements to make on the sponsorship front.
Oh yeah, and I forgot one too. Sorry. So Adventure Passport, you'll see on that Fidlock, our league sponsor for the Adventure program. So their logo is on there. Thank you, Fidlock, for sponsoring like you did last season. They've agreed to sponsor again this season, so that's fantastic. But new sponsor this year, Constellation Cycling out of the Raleigh area, and this is sometimes how personal relationships benefit organizations. Is James Lee. We introduced James at Mayodan at our last race of the season. Not a lot of people in the league usually see James Lee. He is one of those awesome volunteers of ours that shows up every weekend and primarily helps the course setting team. So he's there super early, right? Folks don't see him, and then he's helping Bill Stevens tear down the course. But we introduced James because he shows up all the time, and he'll do whatever we'd like him to do, but he's typically setting up the courses. Anyway, James is a member of Constellation Cycles and brokered a conversation between me and the president. And sure enough, they're now a sponsor to the league, going to support our racing program because that's what they do. They're a cycling team, and just want to give them a note. They help host the Lions Roar cyclocross race coming up in Raleigh, 22 October. Is their main thing. So, hey, our Raleigh area folks listen to the cast, and I know we have a ton of cyclocrossers. And it's like, I know, because I usually hear about it when we try and schedule something in the fall. That's on top of a cyclocross race. But yeah, Constellation Cycling, Lions Roar, 22 October. Go out and support them in the Raleigh area. Should be a good time. And thank you, Constellation Cycles, for what you're doing for us.
Awesome. Well, you got to do the big reveal of season 8 dates and locations at the league summit, and you've got something up there. It is. It's so special. Like, it's right there.
I think, like Elizabeth Gardner, for those that know,
that's all I'm thinking is like the weatherman. Like, you're just
WRAL meteorologist is probably laughing at me right now if she's watching this video. But yeah, and I'll tell you, I will not go through the dates on this podcast. I will because we had some date conflicts on our slides, but yeah, what's posted on the website is accurate. But yes, at League Summit, benefit for those who attended, we did the big reveal of the season schedule. So dates and locations are published for season 8. And let me give just a broad overview of kind of how this season is structured. 7 events on the schedule, starting roughly the first weekend in March, all the way through the first weekend in June. About every other weekend is one of our events. Those first 5 is our normal race series. So just like everyone's used to, show up Saturday, course inspection and some programming. Adventure committee, because they're just creative and awesome, are going to come up with some interesting ideas for the season of adventure. What we can do on a weekend in conjunction with our races, but more to follow on that. So Sunday race, people are generally used to that. So that's the regular season. Event number 6 is a state championship, but different from last season where we just invited everyone and gave more points. It will be a qualifying championship. So I'm not quite sure what those criteria are yet. Excellent that we have a race committee to help me figure that out, what the qualifying criteria is for, call it a qualifying championship. A couple reasons we're thinking about that and doing it this season. One, there's been a demand signal for that. We've got a certain category of athlete, super competitive, and likes to maybe compete at that level. Folks know NICA is doing its first ever regionals this fall up in Maryland, 10 to 12 November. There is a lot of conversation at the NICA level of how they continue to do regional events and perhaps a national championship at some point. And it's fairly normal. Most high school sports have some type of state level qualifying, compete to get into it type of thing. So we'll give that a go this season. And then event number 7 to close the season, not a race weekend. It's a festival weekend for us. We'll close the season. We'll be back at the Whitewater Center, just getting some great rides in. Probably have an aspect of competition there. Again, the adventure committee is pretty creative. They'll probably come up with some cool games and stuff to do amongst teams while they're there. And then instead of like trying to jam your season awards in like an hour and a half, Shawn, at the end of a Sunday on your very last race, and people are like struggling to get home, we'll just do it with enough time, do it right, recognize all the athletes for whatever they accomplished during the season, give them the recognition they deserve. So that's the broad brush of the season. Some pretty cool aspects is 2 new venues, 3 if you count the Whitewater Center, but 2 new venues. We'll, like I said at the League Summit, we're not invading the North, but we are going into Virginia, Danville, Virginia, right across the border. I showed up there a couple months ago, and when the park manager told me we could use the 10 acres of rugby fields for parking, I said, we're coming. So we're launching Bill Stevens and the course setting crew up there in December to set a race course for us. But Danville's a good venue, and then pretty pleased. Kudos to the venue crew for really putting some work in over the summer. My intent was to get us a Western venue, much like we have that Browns Creek out in the east. Let's find something on the Western side of the state. And they found it in Fletcher, North Carolina, through some personal relationships with trail builders and landowners. It's a private venue, so we're not releasing the details of that location quite yet. We'll look at setting up a pre-ride in the spring so teams can have the opportunity before that event weekend to get out there. But yeah, we've got a Western venue for the first time in this league. I'm pretty happy about that. And I think our Asheville area teams are pretty happy about that too. But anyway, yeah, so that's the season, Shawn, the big reveal. Again, it's on the website. Some more details to follow, certainly about each event, and then the fee scheme for the season. I will offer here that we will provide a discount package this season. So basically, for the 6 events anyone can go to, minus the state championship, you can go to 6 events. We'll give you a discount. You'll essentially pay for 4 to go to all 6 if you want to sign up for those early in the season. But again, got to run that through the budget one more time, and then we'll launch that here in the next month or so, what the fee scheme is. But so far, some positive feedback I've gotten on,
Awesome.
the setup, new, different, and like I said, I just hope we're setting the culture in the league. We'll listen, we'll try something, and if it doesn't work, we'll change it for next season. But we'll see how this one goes.
And not only are they published on the website, but they're actually in every team's team snap. So all of the race events, all of the adventure events, and the grid events are all in there. And the race events are divided up into a Saturday, Sunday, simply because Saturday has a different schedule from Sunday. And that way, your team members can actually indicate their availability. Like if they're going to a race, they can indicate, I am coming to this race. And that way you'll know kind of who's showing up Saturday, who's showing up Sunday, that sort of thing. And as we get more details about like the day schedule for Saturday and the day schedule for Sunday, we'll be putting those in those events so that everybody can see that in Team Snap. Also, we are working on how we do the addresses for directions. And what we'll do is there'll always be a link to a Google Maps that you pull up and it asks you for, where you want to start your journey from, and it takes you to where we're going to set up parking. This is proven to be a better way than just simply putting in the address. Saw this August with a venue that we used for coach training, which I used the address that the park listed on their website, and it sent everybody to the wrong place. And so, uh, having a pin and just going, this is where you're going, is how we're going to do it. So, encourage everyone to not use addresses, but to actually just use that link to pull up Google Maps and put in their starting point, and then it will take them right to where they're going to be going.
Solid. Thanks for getting that set up in Team Snap. I think we mentioned that at League Summit too. We'll use that a lot more this season. We did that for all of our coach training registration. Thanks for setting that up, Shawn. Our camping registration instead of Eventbrite. The other aspects so far, fingers crossed, no venue changes on me, but all of these venues for season 8 have on-site camping available. Pretty cool. Great environment for our league. But we'll do that registration through Team Snap, try and get as much in one platform as possible.
Excellent. And basically just the preseason date reminders that we've got coming up. So we've got Grit preseason coming up on October 28th, and that's at Kiwi Park in Wilkesboro, and on November 4th at Medoc Mountain, and that's in Hollister. Those are going to be open to our Grit student athletes. And then coaches, if you haven't already, indicating one of the two adventure dates for adventure preseason is really crucial. You do have to register that your team is going to be coming to this one or this one. And I know right now, Browns Creek, there is still plenty of room. So I would definitely encourage you, if you're closer to Browns Creek than you are to Western North Carolina, then definitely get in there and go ahead and indicate that your team would like to come to that one. And you don't have to do registration or anything like that. It's just sort of indicating this is the one that we choose to attend. So do that as well.
Yeah, it may surprise folks to know, Shawn, there's actually more than 3 miles of trail at Browns Creek. There's like 15 miles of trail out
15,
there.
yeah, 15 miles. Yeah.
Yeah, on our race course. So there's tons to explore out there. And
there's a lot to explore out there.
Yeah.
And to kind of complete the whole sort of preseason reminders thing, this is the time that I implore head coaches and team directors, be auditing your coaches. When you see those red exclamation points, remember those coaches cannot be participating in preseason activities or practices. So get on your coaches to complete whatever things that they need to finish up so that they can help you with your team. And then double check your student athletes for these preseason events to make sure that they are what in pit zone language says race ready, which means practice ready. That's really what you're looking for. You need a yes there. If it's a no, there's something that they haven't finished in the registration process and they need to take care of that. So those two things you need to be really cognizant of at this point.
And I'll say thanks to the coaches who've gotten their team proposals in, their preseason activities again. I usually every morning I'm going through a couple of those, so responding to those teams. My goal is by this weekend to get all the preseason activities reviewed and responded, because preseason opens 15 October for everyone. I know a lot of teams have some events next week. So thanks for getting that information again. One reminder about preseason, just we spoke about Adventure Passport. If your student athlete is showing up to one of those grid events or the preseason adventure event, they'll get their passport at that event. So yeah, sign up and they get to start their activities in the passport a little bit earlier than everyone in the league.
Excellent. And that kind of is a good thing to bring up, because those dates are November 18th for the Whitewater Center adventure event, and then December 2nd for Browns Creek. And one of the things that we might have been a little confusing on is the guidance on whether or not that counts as a preseason event. And because those are league level events, they do not count as one of your team's preseason event. However, there are some guidelines as to who can come and what coaching needs you have for coming and participating as well. So it is a team event, but it's not going to count as one of your team's preseason event because it's a league level event.
Thanks for saying we, Shawn, because that makes us a great team. But it was me that counted as a preseason event. You reminded me, hey, Brian, league event doesn't count. So yeah, so apologies. Doesn't count. Do your 6 and then come to one of the adventure events. It's all good. So thanks, Shawn. Thanks for keeping me.
No, I was like, okay, new sheriff in town, so new boss, new rules. All right. And then other than that, really, then it's the regional event, which is November 10th and 12th in Fairhill, Maryland. And you said that you have emailed out the eligible because there was some criteria for
Even better than email, it's on the website. If anyone goes to the regional event, there's a link to the qualification roster, and I'll review that here for everyone. It's high school athletes only. So registered high school athletes from last season are generally eligible to go. All females can go. All varsity males from last season can go, unless you're a graduated senior. I know that is kind of a touches a raw nerve with some folks in this league. I understand it. Not ideal for spring leagues. It's just a NICA decision. No graduated seniors will go. For the 3 boy categories below varsity, so for the regionals, that's 9th grade, 10th grade, and JV, which essentially our equivalents would be freshmen from last season, JV1, JV2 from last season. The top 15 from each state are being invited, so to speak, or qualified. Those names are on that list. So take a look. If you're in those boy categories, email me. I'll give you the code to register, and you can head to Fairhill, Maryland. We've got about 8, I looked this morning, signed up for the races up there in Fairhill, and a good number signed up just for the Friday adventure, grit rides, and the like. Fairhill is huge. Ton of trail out there. It's going to be a good event for folks that are willing to make the trip. I know it's a long haul for a lot of folks.
Yeah. Cool. I mean, really, I think that's everything we got. I know this is the moment you wait for.
Well, it is, and I did want to thank you publicly for the pro tip on the wilderness first aid videos. For anyone listening that got online, say the Wednesday before their Saturday WFA, and found it was going to
say Friday night about 10 a.m. 10 p.m.
The pro tip for the 1.5 speed on the videos, solid, but I'll tell you, they did not prepare me for the one question the instructor asked at the WFA, and that's, how do you fix an injured pumpkin?
How do you fix an injured pumpkin? How do you fix an injured pumpkin? Oh, I don't know.
With a pumpkin patch, of course.
Oh man,
it's that time of year. Well, actually, it was that time of year, what, a month ago when Starbucks did the pumpkin spice latte?
no, I think I think that's still going on.
Yeah.
But it's not Halloween yet. Like I think Halloween's getting short
You
shrift.
can't tell walking through Lowe's, like it's Christmas.
Well,
already.
yeah, it's like Halloween and Christmas and Thanksgiving is just like that doesn't even exist anymore. Well,
Holiday.
I mean, to follow along with that, why did the vampire buy mouthwash?
I don't know. There's probably a garlic something in there. I don't.
He had bat breath.
Of course.
All right. On those notes, I think it's probably best for us to exit. But I do want to say, if you're listening to this in podcast form, you are missing all of the visual effects that Brian has going on behind him, and I don't know if it's
not
going
just
to
my
be
waving hands.
not just the jazz hands. There's lots of things going on. The man is up in production value like crazy. So I'm not sure if you want to check this out on YouTube or not, but yeah, you might want to just to see all the effort that he's put into making this a visually impactful podcast.
A special message for Bill Stevens, who might have made it all the way to the end of the podcast. Thanks, Bill.
Shout out to both of you that made it to the end
That's
this
right.
far.
Yeah.
So we
Thanks
appreciate
for
it.
dialing in, folks.
Thank you so much.
All right. Take care, Shawn.
See ya.